The National Desk, America's News, now.
This week on the National Desk, classifying cartels.
When you see some of the violence that has happened in Mexico over the years, it's nothing short of terrorism.
Debate over a military response to cartels as DHS acknowledges parts of the border are out of control.
Does DHS have operational control of our entire border?
No, sir.
Then, budget battle. President Biden's proposed tax hikes on the wealthy, the wait on a Republican response, and the looming debt limit in focus this week. Plus, scares in the air, another near miss on the runway.
More mistakes than usual are happening across the system.
Air industry leaders now looking for answers. And later, new concerns over colon cancer as the disease impacts even younger generations.
From the nation's capital, this is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Dee Dee Gatton, and on this weekend edition, we take a look at the big headlines of the week and look ahead at what to expect, starting with the 4 big stories we've been following all week. Drone debacle, new video of an encounter with a Russian fighter jet, what the Pentagon is saying about the footage released to the public, and economic unknowns. After a week of turbulence among regional banks, we're looking ahead at the future of inflation. Then the race to 2024 heating up as possible Republican candidates head to Ohio. The race for votes already underway. And later, new threats of a U.S. TikTok ban, what the Biden administration is demanding of the Chinese company behind the app. Friday, President Biden said Congress needs to do more to hold banking executives accountable and take away compensation that execs got as their banks were collapsing. Meantime, there are global worries that if banks appear unstable, it could affect the world economy. Chief Political Correspondent Scott Thuman has the very latest.
Another rough opening on the stock market Friday to reflect fears Americans have over the nation's banks. And on Capitol Hill, upcoming hearings on what went wrong after California's Silicon Valley Bank and New York's Signature Bank crashed.
There's a management failure, a supervisory or regulatory failure, a failure of regulation, a failure of law.
To stay afloat, teetering banks have borrowed about $300 billion from the Federal Reserve in just the past week, the money going to secure people's savings from being wiped out. But experts say it's a slippery slope.
You can't guarantee all the deposits at Silicon Valley Bank and then the next day say to depositors, say at First Republic, sorry, yours aren't guaranteed. Of course they are. And so this is a breathtaking step.
Could the federal government guaranteeing someone's finances beyond the $250,000 limit become a norm? Already, federal assistance is about half of what it was during the crippling financial crisis of 2008, as President Biden tries to calm jittery customers.
Small businesses across the country, the deposit accounts at these banks can breathe easier knowing they'll be able to pay their workers and pay their bills.
That, as lawmakers say, the bank itself should still be held responsible, especially those who made moves to save their own holdings on the eve of the collapse.
No owners of these banks were bailed out in any way. The owners, the stockholders, the bondholders, they're going under as they should.
All these moves designed to prevent people from making a run on banks and pulling their money as the White House works to instill confidence at a time that the overall economy still appears fragile. On Capitol Hill, Scott Thuman for the National Desk.
Taking a look at your money now, consumers pulling back on spending led to a 0.4% slip in retail sales just last month. Now, the new numbers for February show Americans spent less at restaurants, auto dealerships, and department stores while spending more on necessities like groceries. But when you exclude the often volatile car sales, retail sales declined just 0.1%, and a sign we may see lower prices in the near future. Wholesale prices prices fell dramatically in February. The food and energy categories seeing significant drops, helping to bring down overall wholesale inflation. It all points to inflationary pressures easing. Developing now, the Pentagon is defending its decision to declassify video footage of a Russian fighter jet downing a U.S. drone, saying it prevents Russia from framing the incident.
Ultimately, the Russian military and the Russian government is responsible for its own behavior. And when that behavior is unsafe and unprofessional, we're going to call it out, as we've done in this case.
He also said it's unlikely Russia will be able to recover anything useful from the wreckage. New details. TikTok's future in the U.S. is on shaky ground. The Biden administration now calling for the app to separate from its Chinese parent company. The National Desk, Kayla Gaskins, details why some say the administration's move doesn't go far enough to protect Americans.
The clock could be ticking down for TikTok.
There's a real concern about one of our most popular social media apps being owned by the Chinese.
That's a fact. The Biden administration now threatening to ban the popular social media app in the U.S. if Chinese parent company ByteDance doesn't sell their shares.
Just about anything that TikTok collects could be accessible to the Chinese government. We don't really know the full extent of what the Chinese government could use this data for or why they're so interested in it.
A TikTok spokesperson responding with a statement to Reuters saying, quote, if protecting national security is the objective, divestment doesn't solve the problem.
Divestment is separation in name only. At the end of the day, that troublesome relationship still exists.
Others argue divestment is enough.
Well, I think the reality is that a ban was never very likely or never really the best solution. The government has to threaten a ban in order to achieve divestment.
Former President Donald Trump tried and failed to ban the app back in 2020, U.S. courts blocking his attempt. TikTok has around 100 million users in the United States. The vast majority are in younger demographics. U.S. Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo telling Bloomberg, quote, the politician in me thinks you're going to lose every voter under 35 forever. Some senators on the left and the right say their priorities are clear.
Our obligation is to ensure that the security of our nation.
I've always put national security ahead of everything, was sort of violating their constitutional right.
TikTok's global CEO will testify on Capitol Hill next Thursday. Both sides expected to grill the executive on their data collection practices and the relationship with Chinese parent company ByteDance. In Washington, I'm Kayla Gaskins for the National Desk, America's News Now.
New polling shows former President Donald Trump is widening his lead over Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who hasn't announced whether he's running. A survey from Quinnipiac University showing Trump getting 46% support from Republican voters to DeSantis's 32%. It's a 4-point boost for Trump compared to polling in February. In a hypothetical general election matchup, President Biden has the advantage, beating out both Republicans. He hasn't confirmed he is running for re-election, but a poll of registered voters shows the president with a 4-point lead over Trump and beating DeSantis by just a single point. Well, after a debate on the abortion pill in Texas this week, women for and against abortion are raising concerns about reproductive health care access nationwide. Some telling me this is not a medical but a moral issue. Mifepristone, when combined with a second drug, has been used to terminate pregnancies in the U.S. since 2000. This 2-pill combination is extremely common in the U.S., with more than half of all abortions using these 2 drugs, according to research by the Guttmacher Institute. I spoke to women for and against the push to block the use of one of those drugs.
I do not want to live in a place that restricts my rights. And so I think part of the impact of this will be people moving to places where they do have rights. It just makes me feel like our country is so backward, and it makes me embarrassed.
I have 2 kids, and then I've worked with kids for my whole career. I just don't really see getting an abortion as like really the way to, I don't know, make you happy. You're never going to be in the right stage of life for anything to be perfect. So I just feel like that's always everyone's excuse.
A ruling against the FDA could impact even states where abortion is legal. Typically, the FDA's authority to regulate prescription drugs has not been challenged. Still ahead here on the National Desk, America's News Now, stolen valor. The consequences one woman faces after faking military service. Plus, the dangers of fentanyl amplified in Alabama. The likelihood of getting a deadly dose next. The National Desk team of reporters is bringing you the headlines from coast to coast. We're taking the pulse of America, starting in Texas, where the family of a man shot and killed by Austin police is seeking legal action against the officers involved.
Anthony Franklin's family is taking legal action after he was shot and killed by Austin police officers in January. The complaint alleges that Franklin's Fourth Amendment rights were violated and the three officers' actions and use of force were malicious, reckless, and callous.
We know it was unjustified, and unfortunately, we're here today to showcase what we're prepared to do, which is fight for justice.
In January, police responded to 911 calls about a man firing a weapon downtown.
Don't move, don't move!
A few minutes after arriving on scene, officers spotted Franklin, who matched the suspect's description. He ran, eventually jumping from a nearby surface and falling to the ground. Body-worn camera footage captured the chase and shooting that followed.
I just want to know why. Why?
The complaint, filed on behalf of Anthony's mother, states several times that Franklin was shot at while balled up in a fetal position.
Mr. Franklin posed no threat to the officers. The video was clear.
Austin Police Chief Joseph Chacon wouldn't comment on the officers' actions in the body-worn camera footage, citing ongoing investigations.
Do you have a message for the family?
Well, the message for the family is I'm sorry they've lost a loved one. I truly am. I hate any time that we have to use deadly force in the line of our duties, and we are conducting a full investigation into this.
Now over to Alabama. A new statewide campaign is shedding light on the severity of the fentanyl crisis in the state. Odds Are Alabama is a year-long initiative aimed at educating residents about the prevalence and dangers of fentanyl. The message: odds are, if you buy pills or other illicit drugs online or from a dealer, they will be laced with a deadly dose of fentanyl.
There is almost never a day goes by that we don't see more than one overdose from fentanyl and other opioids. In many of the overdoses we see, it's somebody who's naive, a friend gives them a pill, and they're dead.
According to Odds Are Alabama, 6 out of 10 fentanyl-laced fake prescription pills tested by the DEA contained a potentially lethal dose of fentanyl. In Rhode Island, a woman has been sentenced to 70 months in prison after she faked her military service for financial gain. A federal investigation found that Sarah Kavanaugh lied about being a veteran diagnosed with cancer in order to steal hundreds of thousands of dollars from individuals and organizations. She also lied about being a Purple Heart and a Bronze Star recipient.
For this individual to quite literally put on a fake uniform and try and help herself to some of their honor and service and reputation for her own personal gain, it's repugnant.
Along with her prison sentence, Kavanaugh has been ordered to pay more than $230,000 in restitution. Just ahead here on the National Desk, addressing mental health crisis. The doctor speaking out after struggles with mental health in his family. What he says you can do to help those going through the same thing. And later, the hidden costs of buying a home. The Fact Check team explaining how current rates are impacting the housing market. Our parent company, Sinclair, is proud to partner with the National Alliance on Mental Illness to launch Sinclair Cares Mental Health Support and Hope. It's a campaign to encourage mental health awareness. Earlier this week, the National Desk Jan Jeffcoat spoke with National Alliance on Mental Illness Chief Medical Officer Dr. Ken Duckworth, who shared his story growing up with a dad who experienced severe bipolar disorder.
First, tell us why this focus on young adults is so important.
Yeah, young adults are experiencing a particular crisis of mental health now. And if you look at what teenagers and young adults were supposed to be doing during the isolation and lockdown, it was experimenting in the world, finding a place, a group. And doing Zoom school is not a good thing for that developmental stage in life. And I think that's one of the reasons adolescent and young adult mental health has been so impacted, particularly during this time.
Your own journey, Doctor, with your dad inspired you to write your book, the one you're showing us here, You're Not Alone. What did you experience as a child watching your dad struggle with his bipolar disorder?
So my dad was loving and fun. In fact, my cousins used to say, how come you got the great one? And it's a real interesting feature, but he also was very ill and would become manic and start to hear voices and be hospitalized for months at a time, but nobody would talk about it. And this was a critical aspect of my childhood, which was my dad would have a complete transformation in how he appeared. And I wanted to make sense of it, but nobody would talk about it. So I did the most extreme thing you could do is I went to medical school, became a psychiatrist. And it's a great joy to have written this book because I talked to real people, 130 people who actually want to change that whole paradigm. Real people living with mental health conditions, problem solved, what they did that helped them, and what helped their families. In this way, it reduces the shame and isolation that so commonly travels with mental health conditions.
It's so interesting because so many people live in secrecy, just like you did growing up, where people will say, your dad is this or that, and you know differently because you know what goes on behind closed doors. How do you think this affected you and your mom?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and my siblings. I think a lot of us struggled alone, even within our own family. And I think that's something that I also want to see change. There's a chapter in my book where I interviewed families on how they communicated. How did they problem solve within their marriage, within parent and child, between siblings? How did they learn to talk about it? And what you learn is it's not natural for people. People get scared when it comes to mental health. They feel ashamed. They feel protective of people. And so looking at real people who problem solved, how to run a marriage when both people live with mental health conditions, or how a father creates a relationship with a son who has severe schizophrenia.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute. What are some coping mechanisms?
Coping mechanisms in general, people find they need to get a good diagnosis, they need to get the right treatment plan, and often people find a way to give to others. I also heard a lot more about dogs and, strategies that are practical that I didn't learn in medical school or as a psychiatrist. A woman told me that paper plates were the linchpin to keeping her family together, and I'd never heard that as a doctor. I asked her about that, and she said, I had young kids and I couldn't really run my home, and my kitchen had plates, floor to ceiling. And somebody at a support group said to her, just go with paper plates. Don't worry about your kitchen. Focus on your children. You don't have the capacity to do it all right now.
Yeah. What are some common signs and symptoms of mental illness that we should be aware of?
Yeah, persistent issues with mood, behavior, and thought that are impacting your functioning. So for a teenager, it might be a big drop-off in grades and loss of interest in peers, severe isolation. For adults, it might be problems in love and work, difficulties in relationships and difficulties functioning at work, coupled with weeks at a time of symptoms. Mental health conditions are not just a bad day. They're not simply, having a rough weekend. It's a persistent experience of, say, sadness and sleep disturbance, or elevated mood, or hearing voices. People who are thinking of harming themselves should seek medical attention as well. That's a common co-traveler with mental health conditions.
And doctor, what mental health resources do you recommend?
Well, the National Alliance on Mental Illness is the largest grassroots organization. People live with mental health conditions and families who love them. We can be found all across America. There's 650 affiliates. So no matter where you are, there's a NAMI support group near you. That's one good place to start. We also have a national helpline. If you wanted to speak to somebody today, we have volunteers who man the phones, 1-800-950-NAMI, and they will help you troubleshoot what your journey might look like.
Chief Medical Officer for NAMI and author Dr. Ken Duckworth. We appreciate you joining us this morning right here on the National Desk.
Thank you.
Still ahead, the stories making headlines next week, from the Fed's highly anticipated meeting to a strike in one of the nation's largest school districts. You're watching the National Desk, America's News Now. Taking a look at the top trending stories on our website right now, Buffalo Wild Wings has admitted its boneless wings aren't real wings after being sued by a Chicago man who claims they're just chicken nuggets. And a Purina Pro dog food recall has been expanded. Look at this. After the company said the affected food has potentially elevated levels of vitamin D. More details on our website right now. And a Nebraska school district has agreed to pay a family $1 million after their son died from a suspected allergic reaction. The student ate a granola bar given to him by his teacher. Those stories and much more available right now at thenationaldesk.com. Looking ahead to stories making headlines this week, the Fed's next meeting is set for Tuesday and Wednesday. Still unclear if they'll decide to institute another rate increase after the recent turbulence among regional banks. And teachers and staff of the Los Angeles Unified School District are staging a massive strike. It's the second largest district in the nation with more than 420,000 students. The teachers are asking for higher pay and better learning conditions. Then on Monday, NBA guard Ja Morant is set to return after an 8-game suspension. The Memphis Grizzlies player was suspended after a live stream showed him holding a firearm, allegedly intoxicated at a Denver nightclub. New research shows more than half of American homeowners couldn't afford to buy their own home in today's market. Earlier this week, the Fact Check team took a look at mortgage rates, right now breaking down all of the costs associated with buying a home.
Mortgage rates cooled off a little today, a positive development for people in the market for a new or perhaps their first house. Housing right now is less affordable than it was at the height of the 2008 crisis. With the Fact Check team tonight looking into underlying issues plaguing real estate. Connor, what's keeping people from buying right now?
Eugene, some of the main reasons are high mortgage rates and high prices. Most Americans would have to spend nearly 43% of their monthly income to afford the median home price. According to Realtor.com, the national median price for a home grew to $415,000 in February. That's up from $406,000 in January, but that's not as high as the record of $449,000 that we saw back in June. The Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta says housing affordability is at its lowest in a decade.
The list price aside, the Federal Reserve's attempt to cool inflation by raising interest rates is resulting in high higher mortgage rates, limiting what many can afford to finance right now. So let's talk about those rates now, Janae. Though not the norm, we were kind of spoiled by an extremely low rate earlier in the pandemic, by a period of that, right?
Yeah, Eugene. So just a year ago, the average for a 30-year fixed rate mortgage was 3.85%. Now, according to finance company Freddie Mac, the last week's average is at 6.73%. Now, if a person buys a $400,000 home at this rate, they will pay more than $932,000 on that home over the span of 30 years. And that doesn't include fees like taxes or insurance. Now, if I were to buy that house last year at that 3.85% rate, I would pay a lot less for that same house, a more than $257,000 difference, and a price at $675,000. That's
a lot of money. Again, assuming you're going to keep it for those 30 years. You know, so many options out there. You really want to talk to your mortgage broker or lender to see what's best for you.
And ahead here in our next half hour, new concerns over Mexican cartels, the debate on Capitol Hill about how to take action after 2 Americans were killed crossing the border. And later, new details after House Republicans reviewed Biden family bank records, the claims of a Chinese connection and possible foreign influence. You're watching the National Desk, America's News Now. You can catch us live weekdays from 6 a.m. to 11 a.m. and 10 p.m. to midnight Eastern Time, and anytime online at thenationaldesk.com. We'll be right back.
The National Desk, America's News Now.
The FAA kicks off its safety summit, the issues transportation officials are focusing on to avoid more mid-air scares. And the hack at AT&T impacting millions of Americans. How to protect your data according to an expert. Plus, a Biden family business under review by Congress. The connection to China according to the GOP. From the nation's capital, this is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Dee Dee Gatton, and this week we are following the crisis at the southern border. Some in Washington calling Mexican drug cartels an existential threat to Americans, now pushing for more aggressive action against them. The National Desk chief political correspondent Scott Thuman explains.
It is not just the crush of migrants at the southern border that have policymakers in Washington searching for answers. It is crime, like the cartel kidnapping of 4 Americans, 2 of whom died after they crossed into Mexico for medical procedures, all part of a growing concern.
When you see some of the violence that has happened in Mexico over the years, it's nothing short of terrorism.
On Wednesday, during a congressional hearing at the border, officials acknowledged they're not in complete control.
That's the definition of operational control. Based upon the definition you have, sir, up there, no.
Many questioning if it's time to label Mexican drug cartels as foreign terror organizations. It's a perennial debate. For years, lawmakers have sent letters to both Presidents Biden and Trump requesting that move. Last week, 2 Republican senators unveiled a bill to do just that, add resources to pursue and prosecute cartels, even freeze assets. But it could also worsen relations with Mexico, one of America's top two-way trading partners at more than $600 billion in annual goods.
Designating these cartels as FTOs would not grant us any additional authorities that we don't really have at this time.
The cartels reach inside the U.S., another worry in Washington. This map from the DEA highlights areas across the country it says cartels have a significant influence on distribution of drugs like fentanyl, heroin, and cocaine. Yet Mexico's president says the blame should be widespread, pointing out American residents are often the ones selling the drugs inside the U.S., but said critics don't talk enough about that. The debate now getting much louder. In Washington, Scott Thuman for the National Desk.
Top transportation and aviation industry leaders gathered in Virginia this week for a safety summit hosted by the FAA. They're calling it a call to vigilance after a series of close calls at U.S. airports.
We have seen an uptick in serious close calls that we must address together. Initial information suggests that more mistakes than usual are happening across the system.
Officials maintain the nation's aviation system is the safest in the world, but industry experts suggest increased demand coupled with a pilot shortage could be causing some of the problems. New details on a massive data breach affecting AT&T. The wireless carrier says the private data of around 9 million customers was exposed. The National Desk Jan Jeffcoat went one-on-one with cybersecurity expert and attorney Lisa Garber to discuss the hack, plus recent layoffs within the tech industry.
Lisa, welcome to the National Desk. Good to see you again. I want to start with these 9 million AT&T customers that have been affected after a third-party vendor was hacked in January and exposed customer data. So what information does this include, and what are the consequences of this data breach?
This AT&T breach hit 9 million customers, as you said, and all of these people should be aware of security alerts hitting their inboxes likely over the next couple of months. While the information taken wasn't what's usually considered the most sacred, like credit card numbers or social security numbers, it did include your cell phone number, your mobile account numbers, perhaps some activity related to your account. This was all stolen from a marketing vendor for AT&T. This information is actually extremely sensitive because it can be used for identity theft through a variety of cyber scams. So definitely be aware if you are, unfortunately, one of these AT&T impacted customers, not only for security alerts from AT&T, but be on the lookout for scam text messages, phone calls, emails. Because these folks now have your account number, they may be able to fool other vendors. So definitely something to be aware of, and of course, change your password.
Well, how concerned should we be about this, being that it's a recurring issue, and what preventative measures are in place to protect Americans' privacy?
It is certainly a recurring issue. This breach just comes on the tails of another massive telecom breach, T-Mobile, back in 2021. They're still dealing with the fallout from that, having settled for hundreds of millions of dollars with the affected consumers. We do have privacy protections in place in this country. The FTC enforces them. But for consumer privacy, it's all on a state-by-state basis. We need to do better in this country. Of course, nobody can be completely sealed off from cyber attacks, but these companies that hold very valuable data should be aware of how much they need to invest in cybersecurity in a proactive way.
Yeah, one of those companies is Meta, the parent company of Facebook, and it's already set to undergo 10,000 more layoffs this week. We know tech giants Alphabet, Amazon also making these big cuts. You know, we've been seeing big tech layoffs making headlines for months now. Do you see this continuing?
This will likely continue for the foreseeable future. Unfortunately, whether this is a course correction or a crash in some way for the tech sector, course correction meaning because of the pandemic, everybody boosted their workforce because everyone was going online and working remotely. These companies are making these changes for a variety of reasons. In Meta's case, it's to scale back on some of their work in the metaverse. It's also to scale back on some of the massive hiring they've done recently. As your last reporter said, we had over 10,000 people laid off last year. We're looking at over 10,000 more this year. Amazon, major numbers. Alphabet, parent company of Google, major numbers. Also Zoom and Microsoft and smaller tech companies too. Did they overhire during the pandemic? Maybe, but they have to do better in considering how they develop their strategy moving forward.
And you can view the full interview plus more top stories online all the time at thenationaldesk.com. Developing now, the Republican-led House Oversight Committee says it has evidence connecting Chinese funds to the president's relatives. Chairman James Comer saying the family received a combined $1.3 million from a business associate with links to the country. That includes Hunter Biden, the president's son, James Biden, the president's brother, Hallie Biden, the president's daughter-in-law, and a fourth unnamed Biden. White House spokesman for Oversight and Investigations, Ian Sams, tweeting this in reply, writing in part, perhaps House Republicans should join the president to focus on actually helping American families instead of trying to smear his. Reaction coming in after President Biden released his budget last week. The White House says it would reduce the deficit and help working families. But critics say small businesses would suffer. This week, the fact-check team explains how the proposal could impact the highest-earning Americans.
President Biden released a $6.9 trillion budget proposal last Thursday, laying the groundwork for a policy fight on Capitol Hill. I'm with the fact-check team now. The president's budget calling for the repeal of the 2017 Trump's tax cuts for the wealthy. Courtney, give us the facts on that.
Eugene, under current law, the top combined marginal rate on individual income is 42.8%. Now, that consists of the top federal rate and the average of state and local income rates. Biden's plan would raise the marginal rate to over 45% by increasing that top rate from 37 to 39.6%. This would impact single filers making more than $400,000 a year and married couples making more than $450,000 a year. And that would be the highest personal income tax rate since 1986.
The Reagan years, what specifically happened in '86?
So that's when former President Reagan signed the Tax Reform Act into law, which lowered the top tax rate for ordinary income from 50 to 28% and raised the bottom tax rate from 11 to 15%. This was the first time in U.S. income tax history that the top rate was lowered and the bottom rate was increased at the same time.
Now, this all affects people in different states differently. Explain that to us.
Right, so that's because that top combined marginal rate is a combination of the top federal rate and the average of state and local income rates. Take a look at your screens. You'll see that 5 states and Washington, D.C. would see top marginal rates of more than 50%.
And of course, that's again for people making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. But let's talk capital gains now. That's what you would pay, for example, on the portion of the profits from selling your home. The Biden budget proposes taxing capital gains at the same rate as income for those earning $1 million, Janae.
Right, Eugene. So the long-term capital gains tax rate is either 0, 15, or 20%, depending on your taxable income and filing status. But Biden's plan would nearly double that to 39.6% for wealthy Americans, because like you said, capital gains would be taxed at the same rate as income. Now, rates would be even higher in many states because of state and local capital gains taxes. According to Americans for Tax Reform, this would be the highest capital gains tax since 1978.
In summary here, the wealthiest among us would face higher rates. However, with a Republican-controlled House, this is unlikely to go anywhere. But it's just a foundation for this fight now on Capitol Hill. Ladies, thank you. For more of this fact check team topic, including links to their sources, be sure to visit us online at thenationaldesk.com.
Ahead here on the National Desk, covering the bill, a new push to help students afford school lunch once pandemic programs run out. Plus, Christmas at the beach, one state's unique approach aimed at helping preserve eroding waterfronts. This is the National Desk, America's News Now. Our team of nearly 4,000 local journalists bringing you the headlines from coast to coast. From efforts to help cut school lunch debt in Ohio to a unique way to rebuild Maine's beaches. We're taking the pulse of America, but we start with a push to change school start times in Florida.
Legislation now under review in Tallahassee would require middle schools to start no earlier than 8 a.m. and high schools after 8:30.
I think about the priorities. What is the focus? What, as an educator, what are we there to do? And it's the academics. It's the training.
About half of Florida's public high schools start at or before 7:30. That means students have to get up before dawn, earlier if they have a long bus ride. Teens need 8 or 9 hours of sleep every night and have trouble dozing off before 11.
If you have more time to sleep, then you're more prepared to sit down, pay attention, And that's when you're going to see that children are not going to be as restless.
Some committee members raised concerns transportation could be an issue, especially for parents who have to get to work.
I have a child in daycare, elementary, middle school, high school. It's going to be tough.
Tara McGrath says her 9th grade daughter Carly came home one day upset with the fact that some of her classmates weren't receiving the same amount to eat as others in her school in the Little Miami School District. So she and her friends organized a fundraiser called Little Princess Tea Time, with high schoolers dressing up as Disney characters to serve 112 younger kids pizza, tea, apple juice. McGrath provided these videos and photos of the February 25th event, which raised about $4,000, catching all those students up on their debt.
Very proud of her. Proud of her and all of her friends.
Overall, some estimates have school lunch debt at $26 million nationally and climbing. Districts started charging for lunches again after the pandemic benefits expired. Growing debt is forcing some systems to serve kids who haven't paid so-called alternative lunches.
That's really what we wanted to avoid, is any kid having to go to the cafeteria and feel like they were being singled out.
So basically they're going to line them up, make a barricade that when the wind blows sand over them, it catches the sand. That's how dunes naturally form, is from driftwood or something catching sand. And then eventually all that sand will build up and help restore the dunes.
The permit for this project got approved Thursday, just in time to set the trees before next week's forecasted storm. South Portland collects Christmas trees from residents after the holiday anyways, so they already had the material. These dunes, along with Fort Preble, got wrecked by the historic storm just before Christmas. Willow Beach regulars say they like the unique idea and hope the trees don't blow away before the dunes form. This concept has worked in other parts of the country.
This project here represents a lot of research, a lot of creative thinking, and we're really excited to be a pilot project for the state of Maine and looking forward to rebuilding the dunes economically and using recycled natural material.
And still to come here, our team of correspondents breaking down this week in Washington, from the Fed's big decision to a potential TikTok ban.
And welcome back to TND. Our Washington Bureau covers the nation's capital every day to report on the important issues facing the country and how they impact you. The Bureau's correspondents are here with their insights on the stories they've been covering. National correspondent Audra Elnishar, a ton of economic news this week and going into next. Tell the folks at home a little bit about the pickle that the Fed's got themselves into.
Well, it's absolutely insane that we're even talking about the Federal Reserve having a priority other than bringing down inflation. But right now, after everything this week, all the turmoil, it's got two priorities, and it's really hard to say which is more important, bringing down inflation or making sure the financial system runs smoothly. But that just tells you about the earthquake, the shockwaves that were sent through the system when we saw Silicon Valley Bank collapse, Signature Bank collapse, and Credit Suisse over in Europe almost collapse. So the Federal Reserve, now going into their meeting next week, has a really difficult decision to make about A, whether they should raise interest rates at all, and B, if they do, how big should it be? Now, before all of this drama with the banks, it was pretty much the consensus they'd roll out a 50 basis point hike. Now, the majority of folks weighing in believe it'll be 25%, or excuse me, a quarter point hike. But some people still think they might not at all. And the reason interest rates play into all of this is because it's essentially was the catalyst that brought down these banks. Their investments were really tied to interest rates. And when they went up, the value of their investments went down, and it really triggered that liquidity crisis.
They are adding to everybody's economic jitters. As some are calling a government bailout of Silicon Valley Bank, national correspondent Christine Frizzau, they're raising questions about whether that will encourage bad behavior among banks in the future. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so the word or phrase of the week here on Capitol Hill is, quote, moral hazard. This is the notion that when you reward bad behavior, you're going to get more bad behavior. And this is what, this so-called bailout, which, again, the president said this is not tapping into taxpayer dollars. Instead, they're using taxes and fees to try to, guarantee the depositors' money at Silicon Valley and Signature Bank. But a lot of people are talking not only about rewarding bad behavior, but about disincentivizing good behavior. As people who want to invest our money, are we going to invest in banks that make risky bets, or are we going to try to invest our money, put our money in a place that will keep it safe? This is a really big conversation, the long-term impact of government involvement, not just, as some say, it creates a government dependency that, we know when the going gets tough, the government will step in. But it also, kind of changes the nature and distorts the value of money. So this is going to be a debate that we see going on Capitol Hill in the near future and the long term as well.
And turning to the border, Chief Political Correspondent Scott Thuman, growing concerns with Mexican drug cartels along the U.S.-Mexico border.
Yeah, Steve, especially after 4 Americans were kidnapped, 2 of them killed by Mexican drug cartels going over for medical tourism. And so now you have a renewed push by some lawmakers here on the Hill who are saying this administration, whether it be through the Secretary of State's office or whether it be through the White House or if Congress enacts something, need to label these Mexican cartels as foreign terror organizations. They say that would allow them to easily pursue them, prosecute, even freeze finances, and really shore up the resources to do all of those things. And so they also believe that would really help in the fight on the war on drugs, maybe even decreasing the flow of fentanyl, cocaine, heroin into the U.S. There are a couple counterpoints. One, Mexico's president came back and said, hey, look, you're not talking enough about the blame being spread across the border in the United States. It's Americans who are also then distributing these drugs when they get into the U.S. What are you saying and doing about that? And then secondarily, there is a fear that it could alter U.S.-Mexican relations. Keep in mind, Mexico, an ally in many ways, and also one of the biggest two-way trading partners the U.S. has had in a very long time, over $600 billion in business being done across that border.
And another national security threat, national correspondent Kayla Gaskins, the Chinese social media app TikTok. Tell us what the latest is on that.
That's right, Steve. So the future of TikTok on shaky ground yet again, as the Biden administration is now demanding that the company completely separate itself from its Chinese parent company, ByteDance. And if they don't do so, the Biden administration says that they are threatening to ban this app within the United States. Now, a TikTok spokesperson did respond to the Biden administration's new stance, saying that if protecting national security is the objective, then divestment does not solve this problem. Now, some are arguing that divestment is not enough, that is just a separation in name only, and that the roots between ByteDance, the Chinese-owned company, and TikTok run so deep that it will take a lot to decouple them. And now a lot of Americans are on TikTok, about 100 million, and a lot of them are that younger demographic. So Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo actually telling Bloomberg News last week that there is a concern from the political side of alienating those voters if the Biden administration takes a really hard stance on this. Now, lawmakers on Capitol Hill making their stance very clear today that national security does top any political implications. We talked with Senator John Ossoff, a Democrat from Georgia, and Senator Marshall. He's a Republican from Kansas, and they both had the same stance there that national security does trump any kind of political fallout or upsetting that younger demographic who might not want to see one of their favorite apps go away. The global CEO of TikTok will be on Capitol Hill next week, and he's expected to get some pretty tough questions from both sides of the aisle.
Kayla, Scott, Christine, Atra, you guys are all over it. A lot going on in Washington. Thanks for covering it all. Didi, back to you.
Thanks, team. Still ahead here, colon cancer concerns, the uptick of the disease in an unexpected group, and what doctors are saying about how to prevent it. details on an alarming medical trend impacting young Americans. Colorectal cancer is on the rise for those 55 and younger. The National Desk's Angelo explains.
We talked to doctors along with researchers from the American Cancer Society. They don't know 100% why colorectal cancer cases are rising with people 55 and under. This is puzzling because overall the incident rate of colon cancer is declining. The numbers alarming.
It's scary. You know, we're seeing this growth in colon cancer in a younger population.
The stories troubling. Yale doctors warning in this article about treating younger patients for colorectal cancer. A father of 4 in his 30s, another only 18.
And it's not just really young people. We're talking about more people in their early 50s.
Rebecca Siegel is the Senior Scientific Director for Surveillance Research at the American Cancer Society. Days ago, the ACS published new findings that cases of colorectal cancer among people under 55 increased 11% in 1995 to 20% in 2019. But that's not the only disturbing trend.
We're seeing more advanced stage disease, which is, of course, more difficult to treat.
Healthcare professionals like Dr. Storm from the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota are stressing early screening and getting a colonoscopy.
It is the best detection tool of all the tools we have available. Detect polyps and cancers when they are early and treatable. It also allows us to remove polyps, which helps prevent colon cancer from ever forming in the first place.
But a colonoscopy can scare away some patients, so there are other options, including a stool test that you can take at home. Siegel lays out other ways to reduce your risk.
We know a lot about reducing risk, as I mentioned, body weight, so maintaining a healthy body weight. Also not smoking. Smoking is associated with colorectal cancer. Not consuming a lot of meat, especially processed meat.
Doctors also recommend watching out for symptoms such as a change in bowel habits, rectal bleeding, blood in the stool. In Washington, D.C., I'm Angela Brown.
Important information. That'll be all for us on the weekend edition of the National Desk, America's News Now. Don't forget, you can catch us live from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. and 10 p.m. to midnight Eastern Time. Just check your local listings. And you can also watch us online and catch up with the latest headlines on thenationaldesk.com. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you back here next week.